Now, there's been tear gas and violence again across Turkey as hundreds of protesters clashed with police. At least one person has been killed. The dissent has rapidly spread into a mass protest against the Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan, who blamed the violence on extremists and rejected any comparison with the Arab Spring. Turkey's Public Workers Union is calling for a two-day strike in support of the demonstrators starting tomorrow. Our international editor, Lindsay Hilson, is in Istanbul.
Building the barricade with whatever's at hand. Another night of street fighting in Istanbul. The police just a few yards down the road. The protesters were goading them and lobbing back the tear gas canisters. This was a game, but a dangerous one.
The air is thick with tear gas now, but that's not deterring the protesters. They're bringing their barricades down towards the police, who are still shooting tear gas, even now in the night.
And at that point, tear gas engulfed the protesters and they fled. Scarves and paper face masks were inadequate. It was unbearable without a proper gas mask. Some were overcome by the fumes. Several hundred have been injured. One reported killed, and more than 1,000 arrested. Not everyone was well prepared for battle, nor entirely clear about their aims.
We are not terrorists, we are not hooligans, we are just living normal people in Turkey, and our Prime Minister is ignoring us.
It's a huge movement that nobody thinks about it because we're oppressed, and now they're oppressing us. That's
You're
our
not
reaction.
oppressed. You live in a democracy.
Come on, come on.
A mosque became a makeshift clinic. Tear gas inhalation is the most common problem, but some people were hit by canisters. The protesters commandeered a digger that the police had been using to dismantle barricades. This was their prize, the victory of the night. By the light of day, the police reclaimed their excavator. The protesters' flags still attached. Today, the Turkish president seemed to be appeasing the protesters.
Peaceful demonstrations are part of a democracy. That's how I see the events of the past few days. And I would like to say, messages that have been sent in good faith have been received. When the time comes, what needs to be done will be done. And I'm sure you've all already seen signs pointing to that.
But it's good cop, bad cop. The more powerful Prime Minister said he didn't understand the message and blamed his political opponents for misleading wayward youth.
They may have tricked them into the rebellion. The extremists may have done that as well. They have networks in every city.
They gathered in Gezi Park again this afternoon. If Prime Minister Erdogan dropped his plan to turn it into a shopping mall, the trigger for the protests, many people here would go home. But he says he won't. And now he's gone abroad on a 4-day trip to show just how little he cares. Lindsay Hilson, Channel 4 News, Istanbul.
Well, now, continuingly difficult conditions in Taksim Square. Lindsay Hilson is there, and she has with her a protester with her who I see has a gas mask. She doesn't, but let's go right now. Lindsay Hilson in Taksim Square.
John, it's been a pretty chaotic scene over the last half hour or so. I'm in Taksim Square. Looking behind me, I still see quite a lot of protesters, but the huge amount of tear gas has just wafted across the square. A lot of people ran away. We had to put these on, our gas masks. So clearly there are a lot of people out tonight, and the police are also out tonight. Now, I am joined by a guest here in the square who's braving the tear gas. That's Cezanne Yalchin, who's one of the activists. Cezanne, I see you here, or you've got this gas mask as well. Is this not putting you off from protesting?
No, not at all. Like thousands of people who have been resisting here since the last 7 days, we are all here, and the tear gas is not dispersing anybody. It's just make this crowd bigger and bigger every day.
But why? You don't have any leaders, you don't have a very specific demand.
We definitely do have specific demands, and it all started with government coming here and destroying all this park here in order to build up a shopping mall like they are doing in every part of the city. But
it's something bigger than that now, isn't it?
It is totally bigger than that because it's like the accumulation of a lot of things happening. All this gentrification, all this destruction of the city and the living areas for ordinary people are being taken away by people.
Why such anger? That's a town planning issue. And yet people are talking about your democratically elected prime minister as if he's a dictator.
That's not planning, that's dictating some neoliberal policies which is going to serve only government, filling their pockets, and that's all. And nowhere in the world you cannot see taking away natural places in order to build shopping malls.
But you're a minority, aren't you? The Prime Minister was elected with more than 50% of the vote.
That's true, that's true. That's true, but his discourse have been changing a lot since the last 11 years, since his first election. His discourse keeps changing, and what he's doing, he's like using people's desperateness in order to just with his patronage policies, he's like offering people and a lot of...
And the Islamicization, is that a problem for you?
It is definitely a problem for me, but here, like media should also cover that there are a lot of Muslim people here who are resisting government's policies because this is not serving people, this is just making some part of the society getting richer and richer.
But why not go through the democratic process, vote him out next time? You have the chance.
The thing is that all these legal regulations that they are doing, they're all using very illegal processes. In order to make such a change in a city, you have to have a lot of longer process of communication with people, looking for a consensus, which they are not doing. And democratization and democracy, you cannot just limit it to voting. This is what government is trying to do.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us through
lot.
the tear gas. Back to you in London, John.
Lindsay Hilsum and her guest there in Taksim Square, very neatly illustrating the very profound difference between Taksim Square and Tahrir Square when the Arab Spring began.